No matter how long you have been in business, launching can bring up all the feelings. So, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about how to feel less anxious when you launch. Welcome to the Soulful Sales Show, where we talk about believing in the value of your offers, getting them in front of your right people, and selling more of what you do in your unique way. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Sales Show. So if you follow me in various places, particularly my email list, you might have noticed that I have been launching a lot of stuff lately. I have been selling a lot of things back to back, and honestly, I have been feeling so detached from the outcome of all of these sales. In fact, I'm feeling so detached that sometimes I actually forget I'm selling something. It's not always like this for me, don't get me wrong, but when it is so good. It is so helpful for me just to set it and forget it and get on with my life while those sales are coming in the background. So that is what I wanted to talk about with you today, because no matter how confident you are in your offers, no matter how much prep you've done, no matter how much you know your offers can help people, when you actually get to the point where you hit send on that first launch email, or the page goes live or whatever, it can bring up all of the feelings, no matter how confident you may have felt beforehand. I think that selling our stuff is a very vulnerable thing, because we have created something in the background and suddenly we're opening it up to the world. I mean, obviously, it's only a very, very small portion of the world, but in our mind, it feels huge, right? And maybe people won't like it. Are they going to reflect back to us what we thought to be true about our offer? Is it going to work? Am I going to make the money that I need? There are so many uncertainties when it comes to selling and launching our offers. It makes sense that it can bring up feelings, not to mention the kind of vulnerability, visibility hangover that can come with just showing up more often, sharing more content, being more visible in more places. So here is what I have found helps me to feel more relaxed and less anxious when I am selling and launching. Number one, and this is a big one, really, really important, scheduling in advance. Now, before I get into all this, I have to be real with you and say, I am not the person who schedules everything in advance. In fact, if I go too far in advance, it overwhelms my brain. It's not the way that my brain likes to work. That said, there have been many launches where I have been writing and scheduling content on the day that it needs to go out within that launch. And I have found the hard way that having to write and schedule my content throughout the launch period really keeps me in the launch. Does this make sense? So like my mind cannot escape from the launch because I'm constantly thinking, what am I going to write about next? I have to write this thing. I'm writing this thing. I'm scheduling this thing. I cannot escape from the launch. So as you may have heard me talk about, beginning of 2023, I made a real decision for myself to relaunch more of what I already had, to do what I now call laid back launches, back-to-back selling, making it easier for myself, and really practice relaunching, repurposing, and very, very lazy type launching. And one of the number one lessons I learned from this experiment, which is still going on, is that the more I can schedule in advance, the more able I am to detach from the launch. Because like I said, I'm not stuck thinking about the content of the launch all the time. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, we'd have it all scheduled before the start of the launch. That's not always how it works out for me, but even if I can schedule it just one day in advance. So if you, like me, are a last minute person, I'm very motivated by deadlines, by the way. That is often what gets me to get moving and stop procrastinating and take action. Even if I can schedule it just one day in advance rather than writing it on the day last minute, that makes a difference to my mindset. But more and more lately, I am collating various content that I've written in the past. I have a kind of Airtable document where I list out all the content that I've created for various launches, and I'm repurposing. So I'm able to schedule that way more easily in advance The workload is a lot less now when I'm doing what I call these laid back launches. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a fancy system. I do use an Airtable now. I used to just literally have a Google Doc, and it used to have titles of the different offers, and then I would link to the emails I had sent out on my email provider ConvertKit. So yeah, having a content system to keep track of content you can repurpose really helps to reduce the workload of the content that you have to create for any given launch. But in general, whether you're creating from scratch, whether you're repurposing, schedule it in advance, and it will allow you to switch off much, much better from the launch. Sometimes I forget just how important this is to me, and I get back in my last minute habits, and it's really not good for me. It is really not good for me. I just cannot escape thinking about the launch. It's so not good for me. So yeah, I think I've emphasized this many times, but I cannot emphasize it enough. Schedule in advance. Okay, point number 2. This one is really helpful for detaching from the pressure that comes with that feeling like this launch has to succeed, otherwise I'm not going to make the money I need. How many of you have been there? Because I have. It is not a nice feeling. And although I am motivated by deadlines, I am motivated by, needing to reach a money goal and stuff like that, I am not motivated when the deadline becomes pressure. I actually find it does the opposite. Although I will be feeling like I have to do all the things to make it work and make the money I need, my mind goes into total overwhelm, which ends up in paralysis, and I don't do the things that I want to do, or I just feel terrible about doing them. So here is how I deal with that pressure when it does come around. I don't put all my eggs in any one launch basket. My launch is never the be all and end all of the success of this month, of this year, of this week, whatever. I always know what I'm selling next. And if I don't know what I'm selling next, and I find myself starting to spiral and freak out and put all this pressure on myself, I make sure I make a plan for what I am selling next. And I've definitely talked about this before, but I am not the person who plans out their whole year in advance. I'm not the person who has a strict schedule that I always have to stick to. In fact, that is overwhelming to me, much like the content scheduling that I just mentioned before. But I am a person who has a list of ideas. I am a person who knows roughly what type of thing I could sell next. So yeah, believe me when I say having a plan of what you're selling next is really, really important. Even if it's not a fully fleshed out plan, ideally, I'll know the next thing that I'm selling, and that will be more firmly locked in. And then I'll also have a more vague idea of what I'll sell after that. So there's never all of this pressure on just the one launch, right? Okay, point number 3. Something else that helps me to feel less anxious when I launch is to have a backup idea. So again, this really follows on from the second point, which is about this pressure that this launch has to succeed or else. Obviously, we cannot control whether a launch succeeds. We can control how we do the mindset work to get behind the value of our offer. We can control somewhat like what we create for the launch ahead of time. We can control like being strategic about it and planning in advance and all of this stuff. We cannot ultimately control who buys our offers. And sometimes when a launch doesn't go well, we can debrief and it can be obvious and we can learn from it, but sometimes it just doesn't go well for unknown reasons. And because I started this experiment with myself at the beginning of 2023 to launch and relaunch my offers again and again, I can tell you sometimes when I relaunch the same offer very, very soon after only just launching it, it can do better. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a real mystery as to what makes any particular launch do better or not. And often, the timing just isn't right for the individual people who might have been interested, who are in your audience, right? Anyway, I've kind of gone on a big tangent there, but basically some launches don't work out the way that we want. And to ease the pressure and the fear of that happening, it can be helpful to have a backup idea. So this is different to the previous point where I said about knowing what you're selling next. That's like a plan for what's coming next. The backup idea is like a back pocket idea that you might not use. So for me, backup ideas could be something like running a flash sale on something that I wasn't necessarily planning and squeezing it into my schedule between this offer that I'm launching now and the offer I've planned next. Like if this offer that I'm launching now doesn't do well, I'll quickly run a flash sale to generate some more funds before I do the next thing. It could also be more of a behind the scenes offer. So for example, you could send out a discount only to your past clients, inviting them to work with you again. Or maybe you have a program that you're already running. You could send a special offer just to those people, giving them a kind of VIP support package add-on. You could offer like a done for you version of something that you generally teach people. Maybe this isn't the ideal work that you want to be doing. That's why it's a backup offer. All right. So for ages, for me, my backup offer was that I would start doing copywriting again. I actually never, ever had to use that backup, but that was my ultimate backup. If I didn't make the money that I needed to from my coaching and mentoring and courses, I knew I could put out an offer and do some, like take on some copywriting clients again. You could also pre-sell something that you haven't created yet, or you could bundle up various offers together, do like a bundle, whatever. These offers are not necessarily your first choice. Hopefully you won't need to use them, but it's good to know that you have these ideas in your back pocket. And ultimately, this point and the previous one about knowing what you're selling next is also you telling your brain that there are always more ways to make money. I definitely fall into this trap. I know that my clients fall into this trap where we think that everything rests on this launch and I'm going to run out of things to sell and I'm going to exhaust my audience and no one's going to buy from me and my business is going to fail. We can totally spiral in that direction, right? But there are always new ideas. There are always new ways to make money. There are always backup offers. There are always future offers that you haven't even thought of yet. And these 2 points are really about reassuring yourself and taking some of that pressure off whatever it is that you're selling now. And then finally, I have a kind of bonus point, which is to treat everything you are doing in a launch as an experiment. Even if you have been launching for a while, even if you've done this lots of times, and especially if you haven't done this lots of times, treat everything you are doing as an experiment. It's so easy to get really worked up and worry if you're doing things right. It's so easy while you're in a launch to question whether the launch is working, whether you've made the right decisions, whether you should have done things differently. First thing that I would say about that is a launch is never over until it's fully over. You cannot debrief a launch that is still in progress. And this is very helpful advice that I give myself and my clients all the time to stop us spiraling when the launch is going on, because your job in the launch is not to analyze every single result while it's still going, because you don't know the bigger picture of it yet. Your job in the launch is either just to detach and relax if you're doing a laid back launch, or if you're doing a slightly more energetic, visible launch, then your job is to stay grounded and really take care of your energy so that you can show up in an inspired way. So treat your launch as an experiment, but don't debrief that experiment until the launch is fully over. Once the launch has ended, then you can see the whole picture of how it went. Then you can see whether there are things that you should maybe change next time. Then you can see if you need to tweak the messaging, or you can get feedback from people who didn't buy, or whatever it is that you need. But if you treat it as an experiment, you cannot lose, even if the launch doesn't go exactly as you had planned, because you are committing to yourself that you will learn from it afterwards. And you are reminding yourself that when the experiment is still going, you cannot know the results yet. So there's no point in freaking out about it. So I hope that this has been helpful. Number one tip, honestly, is to schedule in advance. And I do teach the whole system of how I plan what to launch, how I gather my content, how I decide on things like the timings and the urgency I'll add to a launch, and how I do all the scheduling and everything in my course, Laid Back Launching. Now, normally you're going to have to be in my Soulful Sales Society membership to get this Laid Back Launching course, but I do have a very special pre-Black Friday sale coming up. And although I'm not telling you what all the other offers are in it, so basically it's going to be 8 days of daily offers. Each day is a different offer, 24 hours only. And the reason that they're so short is because these offers are big. You can save up to 55% on different programs of mine. I'm not telling you what they are just yet. I will say that they are all going to help you with soulful selling in alignment with your values and your energy. But I will tell you one of them, and that is my Laid Back Launching course. I have just totally given the course a makeover and an upgrade, and you will be able to get it for a very, very juicy price as part of my special Black Friday sale. So if you might want in on the Laid Back Launching course, go to ruthpoundwhite.com/BF party, all one word. Sign up to the waitlist and look out for my daily sale emails starting the 15th of November. And Laid Back Launching will be one of those offers. Okay, well, I will catch you again next week with another episode of the Soulful Sales Show. Until then, do what you can do to detach from whatever it is that you're selling right now. And I promise it is going to support you to sell more. It is going to support you to sell more often. And it is going to support your well-being, which is the most important thing. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Soulful Sales. If you have a moment to rate and review, know that it really does make a difference. And if you'd like to carry on the conversation, then you can connect with me on Instagram at Ruth Poundwhite, sign up to my newsletter at ruthpoundwhite.com/newsletter, or my personal favorite, join me inside the low ticket membership at ruthpoundwhite.com/membership. And keep doing what you're doing because your work really does matter.